Hello and welcome. You're watching the Global Reset on CNBC TV 18 Prime with me, Prashant Nair. Today we assess the implications of the hike in H1B visa fees to a whopping $100,000, marking the latest in immigration crackdown unfolding in the United States. Our guest today for the day, Rajneesh Pathak of GlobalNorth and Keshav Murugesh of WNS Global Services. A little bit about our guests. First, Rajneesh, he's the founder and CEO of GlobalNorth Residency and Citizenship. He has been associated with the asset management space for over 2 decades in strategic roles with BNP Paribas, Birla Sun Life, DSP, Morgan Stanley. He began his entrepreneurial journey in 2019 by setting up Invictus Alternatives, India's first B2B sales and distribution platform for alternative investment products. His passion to scout for opportunities in new age products led to the genesis of GlobalNorth Residency and Citizenship. Well, we'll also be joined by Keshav Murugesh, he's with us. He's the CEO of WNS Global Services. He's the chairman of the Confederation of Indian Industry UK-India Business Forum, that is the IBF. He's also been closely associated with NASSCOM, the apex industry body for Indian IT and business process management, BPM companies in various capacities. In fact, he's also an active member of the Wall Street Journal's CEO Council. So just before I bring both Rajneesh and Keshav into the conversation, let me quickly sort of tell you what happened. If you've not been paying attention to the news, which has been hard to do, widespread panic and confusion gripped Indian nationals in the US following announcement of a new H1B policy. US President Donald Trump on Friday signed a proclamation raising the fee for H1B visas to a staggering $100,000. Marking the latest move in Trump's wide-ranging immigration crackdown since taking office. The White House issued a series of clarifications, which I think has blunted the impact, the headline shock a little bit. For example, the rule applies only to petitions that have not been filed yet. It does not apply to beneficiaries of petitions filed before September 21st, 2025, or to the beneficiaries of currently approved petitions. There are other clarifications as well, which we will bring up during the course of the program. While the clarifications were able to calm nerves in the tech circles, the likes of persistent emphasis Coforge reiterated it will be business as usual for them. Many companies, listed companies, have told exchanges that the impact is actually quite minimal. Well, is the impact a little more for large caps like Infosys, TCS, Wipro, Tech Mahindra and peers? It's a subject which we continue to investigate. As far as trading today is concerned, stocks are lower. Now, with respect to impact in the foreseeable future, brokerage firms are saying that the applications for the current fiscal year are already locked in. Therefore, the $100,000 impact will only show up at 527 onwards. Now, India's External Affairs Ministry, in a response, underlined that both India and US have a stake in innovation and creativity, and that the two sides can be expected to consult on the best path forward. The ministry further added that this new requirement is likely to have a humanitarian consequence by the way of disruption caused for families. Trump's move to hike H1B visa fees comes amid a downturn, of course, in the bilateral relationships. It's basically been up and down between India and the US. However, 2 recent positive exchanges between Prime Minister Modi and President Trump on social media have signaled a thaw in the relationship. What this move brings to the forefront, potential spike in hiring costs, but could it also motivate Indian professionals to build careers here in India, especially amid the government's big push, at least you heard from the Prime Minister over the weekend, Swadeshi push in that sense. That was, of course, meant for manufacturing stuff that one can make here in India, but maybe on services as well. Now, let's straight away get in our guests to give us more perspective. Rajneesh Pathak, founder and CEO, GlobalNorth Residency and Citizenship. Keshav Murugesh, CEO of WNS Global Services. Gentlemen, great to have both of you here. Thank you very much for joining us. Prashant, this side. Keshav, if I can come to you first. This is more a question for maybe, I don't know who this this question is for, maybe economists or equity strategists or something, but let me ask this to the both of you. Do you see what we've seen on the H1B side as do you see this as the US, this White House using this as a negotiating tool, or this is sort of, opening up the front on services? So far it was about goods, and this is perhaps the first salvo on the services side. How do you see it? Keshav?
Paul, it's good to be here and to be with you in the studio like this. Whichever it is, whether it is a negotiating ploy or whether it is business as usual for the long term, I think it is now time to reset the rules, reinvent the game, because the world around us is changing and changing fast. But I can only tell you one thing. For Indian IT companies who have now lived through many headwinds and have always come out positive, right? Whether it was the financial crisis, it was Brexit, it was COVID, and this constant impression over decades that H1B, which actually creates talent mobility to deliver to the best brands across the world, was always confused with immigration. I can tell you our companies, will quickly have plans to mitigate this and will, find ways and means to manage and continue to service all the best brands and create new innovation in spite of this.
No, that we will. But do you think my question was more just to set it up? Do you see this as a opening a new front or no? You don't.
I frankly see this as I don't see it as opening a new front. I genuinely believe that over a period of time, the US has seen H1Bs potentially wrongly as creating immigration. Every country around the world is today trying to target immigration, and so this is one more swipe at immigration.
Rajneesh, same question to you. How do you see this?
So thank you, Prashant, for having me on the show. I potentially see a combination of multiple things. This may be trying to cover, let's say, a negotiation tactic. It may also be to appease supporters. It may also be to create a narrative of the impending recession, wherein we tried and we have to still see these rule changes testing legal courts and going through the Congress, right? I mean, this is just an announcement like similar to the one which happened in February, which is more than 6 months back. So we don't know what it is, or it is everything in combination of this. Um, H1B, just to add to Keshav's point, have always been the target of these changes. But let me give you a data point here, Prashant. There are total 163 million people employed in US. Out of that, H1B is only 7,30,000. So it is a very, very small number compared to how many people are employed there. And I fail to wonder how are these people taking away jobs from Americans. So I think it is a combination of everything. It is trying to kill many birds by one arrow, and that is what it seems like.
That statistic is interesting, right? Less than 0.5% basically, Rajneesh, is H1Bs in that sense. But Rajneesh, what's the mood like? I mean, you advise families, professionals on global mobility. What's the real mood amongst families you've spoken with post this move? I mean, not with regards to H1B. You don't advise on H1Bs in that sense, but overall.
Yes. So see, we specialize in immigration by
Yeah.
investment. One of our foremost discussion filings from India has been EB5 program, which also came up in discussion 6 months back when the first time the gold card was mooted as an idea, right? Now EB5, simply put, 800,000 investment for 5 to 7 years gives you a green card in 2 to 3 years. If you are in US, it can give you an open work permit in 4 to 6 months. So it is a program running successfully for 35 years. So we have in the last 6 months seen a lot of conversations, lot of executions happening. The volumes have almost gone up 3 to 4 times, and we anticipate it to further go up in the next 1 year because the EB5 program comes up for a reauthorization in the Congress in September of 2027. And there is a grandfathering clause till September of 26. So anyone who has the money, the liquidity, the understanding, the vision of doing this for their children, and many more people are doing this increasingly, are finding this as a solution to all of this noise. And H1B itself, I mean, frankly, the wait time for H1Bs to convert to a green card, and to Keshav's point that this is not immigration. Even after that, the employer has to sponsor you for a EB2 or EB3 for green card. So it is a different visa and path that one has to take to really find permanency. And that wait today is upwards of 30 years.
Hmm.
So it's
Yeah,
not as if that H1B is immigration, right?
yeah, yeah. Keshav, you wanted to come in?
Yeah. So Prashant, I'm just trying to bring this back to, tech and India and all of that kind of stuff. But the reality is, the logic behind this announcement appears to be that H1 talent on H1Bs are replacing local talent at a much lower cost. Actually, you look at it, Indian companies for years have built very strong US relationships, US presence, created large numbers of jobs in the US, are ensuring massive amounts of tax are being paid by Indian companies in the US. And the local community is being benefited by the huge amount of spend by Indian companies operating from the US. The same TCS, Infosys, all these companies who have assets in the US actually are contributing like crazy, to the US. But for some reason, there is this, this feeling that, this talent is replacing local talent. I'll give you one statistic. If you look at the numbers from 2015 to 2010, what was 14,000 H1Bs in 2015 is now 10,000, which means, and that also for very high impact tech talent. This is consumed by the Indian, kind of companies. So as long as there is tech talent available at scale, high-end talent, Indian companies are anyway hiring them, they'll continue to hire them. If they don't have them onshore, they will continue, they will pay this 100,000 and get these people in. So I think this is much ado about nothing. That is one. Second thing is the L1s, which has not been discussed for a long time now, is the other potential for many companies to continue to leverage in order to make sure that critical talent are there to manage, projects and come back. So I would actually think that there is enough potential for Indian companies to continue to hire locally, as well as to, to keep delivering, their core, impact to their clients by leveraging the H1s, even with the 100,000, as well as the L1s, and creating the right impact. But I can also tell you, one thing that has happened as a result of this announcement is that the old model, where a lot of youngsters thought that they would just go away to the US, educate themselves there, get absorbed, in an H1 through an H1B, work for someone, and then continue to stay there. That model probably will end, and therefore that talent is now going to be available to us locally in India.
And that is something. That is something which I want to come to specifically. I want to get both your views because, I think it's, a lot of our audience which is watching, and I mean, all of us know people who have kids in the US or going to the US or planning to go to the US or come back from the US. And I'll just get to that point. But Keshav, just one thing. Do you think with all that is happening in practical terms, it may not make much of a difference? And we've heard from companies. I mean, I've spoken to a couple of listed companies in the morning, and they've all said the impact is manageable, as you also point out. But does this overall in the US send a bit of it's like a chilling effect? It's the message, right, which goes out from the government. And when the government sends out a message, it is heard and it is followed in that sense. Would you agree, Keshav?
Yeah, like, Prashant said earlier, I think some of this is basically to also feed the, the local, base, electoral base or whatever, particularly at a time where, it looks like the job creation in the US is reducing. And these are, this news has been out for the past, few months or so, right? So it will, feed a particular group of people. For some time, it will create some bit of noise. But the real facts on the ground is India has kept reducing its dependence on H1s, right? And with this will actually build even more resilient models in order to compete with the best across the world. And just think of it. Immediately after this was announced, China announced a new K visa, which is now saying the best talent from across the world can now come and work in China. So frankly, for Indian talent that is so hell-bent on, wanting to go and work somewhere else, now that's another initiative or a location that is available to them, working in, great projects, great programs. But I think the best use of this talent is going to be to create great deep tech companies in this country, create excellent, projects on technology, in this country, create, I would say countrywide tech initiatives and investments that will ensure that global product companies now are all launched from India. So I would look at this as a very positive, outcome, because I'm pretty clear that as a result of all of this, all the trade bodies, the companies, as well as the government will come together to create more and more interesting initiatives, some of which are already announced by METI, right? Obviously, they may have thought that, some of these things would be emerging over a period of time. And all of this will, be very positive for us, because ultimately it will mean talent will stay here. And if we are successful with this, it means even existing talent that went into the US will prefer to come back to a growing India and contribute to, Vikasit Bharat, I would say.
No, I certainly, all of us certainly hope so. But and I've done a couple of programs with people who've built large companies in the US on specifically this aspect, which is, how do we have that ecosystem to build this kind of, some of the foundation, people working on some of the foundational technologies, because clearly Indians have the talent. Maybe, that ecosystem, whatever, is a bunch of things. It's always a bunch of things. But interesting point, Keshav, you bring up China. It's an interesting thought. I'll take a quick break here. I have to do that. I'm going to come back and continue this discussion. We'll also talk about, there's one important cohort in constituency, which is, students, people who are looking towards technology as a career, building a life around it. What does all of this mean for that? This is a passing phase. Is that how they should look at it? Or this is more permanent? So we'll just sort of pick up on some of those points. Take a break. Be right back. Okay, welcome back. We're talking about, of course, the H1B issue, but also, whether this is the whether this marks tightening of stance from the US side with regards to jobs in the US, services, perhaps. There is, another thing we've not spoken about, of course, is the Hire Act. It's, of course, it's in the Senate. Maybe, hopefully, it won't get passed, but that's the other thing. There are, of course, multiple other proposals as well. But the real question is whether, we are moving towards more and more tightening of, regulations around jobs in the US with regards to, non-US residents, and or this is sort of a passing phase, more of a negotiating tactic in what, of course, has been a protracted, a trade dispute between India and the US. Rajneesh Pathak and Keshav Murugesh have been running us through their views. Keshav, just one point. How bad is the job scene in the US, if I can ask you this?
Look, Prashant, we have to recognize the fact that across the globe today, jobs are a problem. It's not just the US. It's a problem in the UK. It's a problem in Australia. It's a problem in New Zealand. To some extent, even in India, certain jobs are a problem. So that being what it is, right? Every country seems to be, enforcing protectionist kind of measures, as a result of which, each of these announcements are being seen as, positive for that particular economy. But the reality is, water will ultimately, seek its own level, right? And therefore, if there is great talent available in one location that needs to go to another location, and as long as that talent is not being seen as a potential immigrant, that talent will be, brought there by the smart companies. People will pay for the talent to bring them there, right? But you have to recognize the fact that with all the changes that are taking place across the world, whether it is, ecosystem changes, economic announcements being made, tariff-related changes, the fact that, people are seeing there are recessionary trends, the first impact ultimately is jobs.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think as someone put it, and that was interesting phrasing, that especially the H1B move impacts Indians disproportionately because they're the largest recipients of this H1B visas, but not Indian companies, because these Indians were, it hurts American companies more who were employing these Indian workers. Let's now come to Rajneesh, another issue, which is what we ended the last segment on, which is, for parents who are watching, students who are watching, what does all of this mean? I mean, how should they plan their own futures? I mean, directions to take, paths to choose.
So, Prashant, there is a lot of talk around this that students will start looking at other countries to study and settle down. To my mind, frankly, I think nothing can match the kind of education ecosystem that US has created over decades. So it is not quickly replicable, right? Including the size of the campuses, the kind of fundings they have, right? That is to the sheer size of the economy and the population and the kind of consumption economy it is, right? Um, Three is it is an aspiration, it is a lifestyle still. So I don't think from an education perspective, because it's not just about education and you get educated and come back, right? Majority of the kids who are going out today want to find their feet, want to find a path.
But Rajneesh, that is wanting, but it's not happening. That is what Keshav was also talking about. You finish, you drop a bomb on a US education, undergrad or whatever, and then most have to come back because even I'm told even internships are hard to find now in the US. Maybe it's just a passing phase. I don't know, but just
Keshav's,
yeah.
yeah. So Prashant, to Keshav's point only, that jobs are not there anywhere, right? So if asked a question, where should we send the kids? It is either India or US, simply put. There is no third country from a opportunity, from a size, from a scale, from a risk capital, from innovation. A lot of perspective which makes sense other than India and US.
Yeah. So
Prashant,
India versus US, Rajni, just to finish that point, India is more, it's cost versus reward, right? ROI. You think India is better? I mean, many people will make that decision now, choice now, at least for the next 3 years, 3.5 years.
They will.
It is already happening, Rajneesh, you can see it?
So not as of now. I think increasingly with this, and like you said, this may just be a transitionary passing phase. People don't change their long-term aspirations and plans for a transitionary phase, right?
Yeah.
This may not be structural at all. This may not be legal at all. This will be challenged in legal courts for sure,
Yeah.
right? But we do see a lot of top tech company CEOs are our clients, children in the tech industry. We do see a lot of work moving to India for sure. I was told by a top tech company, global tech company CEO, that we've been asked to hire more people. I'm not finding space in Bangalore.
Yeah.
So it is saturated to that extent, okay?
Yeah.
And like Keshav said, I think tech talent, deep tech, other than Bangalore, it is not available anywhere in India practically.
Yeah, maybe Hyderabad, but global capability centers, right? Is another way. I did a show, and they said that there are 2 GCCs, smaller now. Of course, the bigger ones are all here. 2 GCCs opening every week in India. So let's hope that is that doesn't come on the radar.
And Prashant, that is the opportunity, because let's think of it. India's growth rate, GDP growth rate is like 7.5%. You know, our focus has to be to work hard to make sure that the growth rate of India keeps going higher and higher. And we're already among the highest in the world. We should only get higher and higher, leveraging all of these announcements. We have to understand, obviously, Rajneesh is the absolute expert on immigration and what youngsters are looking at and things like that. But I'll only say one thing. If you look at the number of students going into the UK, US, now, frankly, some of those countries have educational institutions of great repute. And therefore, while I think this will all be a passing phase, you can't avoid, getting great education if you want to keep making progress. So that's a very personal choice that parents and children have to make. But think of it, 40,000 children actually come to the UK for education each year, and the average fee is £20,000. So 40 into 20 is £8 billion is the fee that we pay. Now, this fee that we are talking about from H1B is 10,000. And even if you continue with 10,000 at 100,000, that's 1 billion, right? We actually pay $1 billion and we pay 8 billion pounds of fees that goes out of India each year only to the UK, then to the US, then to Australia, then to New Zealand. You add all of that, it's probably in the region of $45 billion, right? So if you ask me, students and parents should, be focused on a different topic, which is what makes a student much more relevant for the job market, now or when things recover extremely well. And that will be, building that DNA of understanding a domain very well, understanding the basics of technology extremely well, being articulate and being able to have an elevator pitch when you're interacting with somebody on the other side.
Yeah.
And finally, building commercial acumen.
Yeah.
Right? World will not stop. Things will keep moving. These announcements come, these announcements go. We have seen all of this from Y2 all the way to...
Keshav, no, absolutely. I think very good advice for those who are listening. Just last, very briefly, Keshav, during Trump 1.0, right, the US Chamber of Commerce, National Association of Manufacturers, IT Serve Alliance, they all actually filed lawsuits opposing some of the measures on immigration which were proposed then during Trump 1.0. Do you think there will be a big pushback in the US? I mean, you're closely sort of associated in that ecosystem in the US as well. You know many of the leaders there. Do you think there will be a big pushback to this, what has been proposed now?
A wonderful thing about the US is anything that is announced is immediately legally, handled the next day. So you should assume that all this will be pushed back. Now, whether it will be successful or not is a different matter.
Yeah.
But you've seen it in every announcement that has been made. It has been fought by the lawyers the next day.
I hope this one is as well and with success. Keshav and Rajneesh, it's wonderful speaking to both of you. And I think, great insights for me. I hope for the viewers as well. And we'll have both of you and we'll invite both of you back on because this, I think, is a continuing conversation. I hope nothing new comes, but can't be sure. But we will have enough to talk about over the next at least 3.5 years during the course of this.
You should expect changes happening all the time, but it'll all become a tailwind for our industry and for this country.
I hope so. I hope so. Well, thanks very much once again, Keshav and Rajneesh. It's a wrap on this edition of the Global Reset. Thank you very much for staying with us. More comes up on the other side.